Well, I'm really excited to be sitting here at the Western Film Festival with a star that I've really admired for many years. John Saxon is Brooklyn born, but you'd never know it from some of his roles. He's been in a couple iconic films aside from Westerns, Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee and Nightmare on Elm Street. John Saxon, how you
Thank you.
doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
How does it feel to be in? We'll get to the Western stuff in a second, but how does it feel to people to identify you with two iconic films that will live forever: Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee and Nightmare on Elm Street?
The more the better, you know. I mean, there are a few other things that there was a film that I made. What was it called again? Black Christmas, which was a suspense kind of horror film, but more a suspense film than a horror film. I think it was a wonderful film. Yeah.
What did you think of Bruce Lee?
Well, what I thought of him is when I first met him. It was the first day I arrived in Hong Kong. I had my wife and a little son, 2 years old, with me, and I had been given a telephone number that was Bruce's because he wanted to talk to me. So I called him, and he said, "Come on over," and I was real close from the hotel we were in. And as soon as he opened the door, I felt at home because he had a gym that was quite similar to what I have had in the garage. You know, he had equipment and things that most people don't have, kettlebells and things like that. So we hit it off. He had magazines regarding, like Iron Man stuff. He had a wall filled with books of all kinds.
And you two had a lot in common. A lot of the viewers don't realize that you're a black belt in karate.
Well, yeah, I've got.
Am I safe?
Yeah, you're safe. That's it. But by the time I got to working on that film, I had really kind of my sense of wanting to be a karateka had diminished. I was going into some of the Chinese things like Tai Chi, and I wanted to know what Bagua was and so on. I asked him about these things. He wasn't so interested in those things. He had his own.
You played a lot of villains over the years and played with a lot of famous people, but I was telling you earlier, my friend Ed Asner came into town not long ago, and he was in an episode with you of Gunsmoke where he was trying to kill you half the time.
That was a great story, incidentally. I made what it was in that kind of a episode. It was just a wonderful story. And yeah, I was a poor farmer who decided that he'll never make it and be able to take care of his kids and his wife. So he stole some money from something and was put in prison. And then he was chased by, only to find out that when he got out of prison after 8 years, his wife said, "You remember that land that you used to have that ain't going to be any good?" Well, I bought to the bank and we got money and we've got a lake now.
It's a great story. How was it working with Ed?
Ed was a good actor, always a good actor, and he was, the president of the Screen Actors Guild for a while, and he once called me in to become a member of the board, and I did at his request because I thought he really had some real sense about what the union meant. And I spent, not that I loved doing it, but I spent 3 years every Monday going to these meetings.
I'm going to throw out a few names, and you just give me a sentence or two on each one, okay? And the movie The Appaloosa, you work with Marlon Brando. Give me a sentence or two on Marlon Brando.
Well, it wasn't Marlon's peak desire of films at that time. He was a little unhappy and so on and so forth. And to me, it was a role of the lifetime. And in fact, however, we worked together again. I would tell him things and tell him stories about something that I had experienced in Mexico and so on. And we wound up improvising scenes that never existed in the script. I wrote many of them, or wrote a piece of that. So it was, at one point I went to tell him, because he was really sort of down, and I said, "Look, if you keep this up, I'm gonna take this film." And he shrugged like as if, "What? Who cares?"
Electric Horseman, one of my favorite films with Robert Redford, a real morality tale. And again, you were sort of the heavy in that. But how does it work? Give me a sentence on Robert Redford.
Well, Robert Redford and I first met in a film called War Hunt. I was the star of it, and he was the first recognition. He was the first and introducing Robert Redford. We became friendly too, but only for a little while. The film is a very interesting film for people who are interested in looking for it because it's a black and white war study.
War Hunt, very
yeah,
good film.
a good film. But then again, we got together on, The Horseman.
Yeah.
Over that period of time, I would meet him once in a while in New York and things like that. He was always very friendly, but I haven't seen much of him since.
Final thing, what kind of television do you watch these days?
Well, there are good shows. What is it? One I can think of. Pain. What is it called? Something Pain. It's about Long Island, about and good shows.
That's because you're a New Yorker. You like anything about New York, right?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, the westerns I have been a part in. I was not, raised in New York. I've never.
Well, nobody would ever know it. There you did Joe Kidd with Clint Eastwood, and you do these great westerns. People, I think, a lot of times thought you were either born in the Old West or born in Mexico.
Well, but yes, right, because in two of these films I played Mexican. One was a Mexican bandit, as it were, and another so-so bandit.
Why don't you and I do a film where you're a Mexican black belt?
Okay.
John Saxon.
How much?
John, I thought you were going to pay me. John Saxon, a legend, and thank you for speaking with us.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.